So let's actually get started. So on the program, we said that it's a keynote, and it's only going to be me, but that was kind of lying. It was a white lie. Because during the years, the past years of European SharePoint Conference, we always wanted to do this dev keynote in a way that we have multiple people joining us on the stage. So today, I will be joined here by Laura, Paolo, and Jeremy, and Mike. So we wanted to have this nice balance of community stuff and community people and the Microsoft engineering people. We're going to talk about building engaging solutions with SharePoint and Microsoft 365 developer platform. So we're going to talk about, obviously, it is a European SharePoint conference or European SharePoint Office 365 and Azure conference. So we're going to balance out different topics today, which will hopefully then clarify what is the Microsoft 365 developer platform and what's possible. Because it's not about the individual applications. It's not about the individual services. It's not about competing against certain services between each other. It's really building connected applications which can be surfaced in all of these different platforms and services and devices and UIs which we have in Microsoft 365. Now, quickly explaining who am I. So making sure that that's my connectivity. One moment. Here we go. So my name is Vesa Juvonen. I'm a principal program manager from the OneDrive SharePoint engineering team, and I'm responsible of the open source and community side of the house. So making sure that you as a developer, you can find samples, guidance, documentations around the topics which we release and capabilities which we release. And it's not really just about the OneDrive and SharePoint because everything is connected. So we work together with Jeremy Fake, as an example, with Microsoft Graph people, and Mike Amelan, who's going to join us today, to make sure that we have a connected and consistent story for developers and how you can take advantage, truly, the power of the cloud, which we have with Microsoft 365. My role, like mentioned, I'm responsible globally on the community side of the house and making sure that the partner ecosystem has the right tools and capabilities available. So whenever you start implementing something, there's tutorials, samples, and documentation for you, which you can follow up on and get started. Now, let's actually go back on the Microsoft 365 story, and let's start with a small story related on how we used to do stuff in the past. I'm a relatively old person, which typically you shouldn't say out loud, but hey, I've been 13 years in Microsoft, and I've seen the evolution of the products and the development platform as well. And when I started back in 2006, we were kind of always implementing isolated applications. We used to have a Windows device, typically, because we were not building cross operating systems, cross devices, cross different sizes of devices at that point. So you created an application which worked on one device with one person, potentially with one file. If it was an Office application, so you basically wrote those macros, or you wrote, let's say, macro applications in Excel to automate some processes. Luckily, the situation has changed since, for example, when I started in Microsoft, or when I started my career as an IT back in '98 or so. And I know I'm old. I have the Scandinavian looks, so that's the cheating phase. Now, but the situation has changed. So with Microsoft 365 apps, what we want to do is that we kind of change the dimension. We concentrate on the persona. We concentrate on the user. And we start extending the user with the cross-platform applications. And what it means is that it doesn't matter are you using a computer, are you using a mobile device or an iPad, you can access on the same application or same capabilities. So you can actually continue your work in your commute, when you're in a bus or a train with your mobile phone, or on the backstage, because my computer is on the podium, I was able to still check the slides and memorize what I'm meant to say, which typically isn't, I'm not that successful with that, so let's see how this goes. Anyway, it is also connected experiences, so everything what you do is connected within this hub of actions and connected with this hub of event, which we called as a Microsoft Graph. So you as a persona or the end user can access easily the information which the user has accessed within the past days or months or weeks and so on. So as an example, once again, I opened my PowerPoint mobile application quickly on my mobile phone, and I was able to see my latest presentation, which I viewed on my computer directly in that mobile device, which was really cool, because back in '90s or 2000s, that was impossible. So it's all about the tech connectivity through the cloud and having an integrated workflow, where you as a developer can then build your own applications and extend the existing ecosystem and extend those nodes which are available within this map of graph. And maybe if you're a SharePoint developer, you're like, well, the Microsoft Graph has some limitations, and all of this is getting together, and we're going to talk about all of this during the keynote as well. But really, the graph and this events and connectivity between the applications is the key of the future in the Microsoft 365 platform. Now, if you think about this one from the dimension of an architecture, if we think about the opportunities around this one from a partner ecosystem perspective, we have 1 billion users across work, life, and EDU building on top of Microsoft 365, or using, Microsoft 365. So it's a massive opportunity for you as a partner or as a developer to extend those experiences in multiple devices across the world. We have 1 million active apps using Microsoft Identity. There's 100 million Microsoft Graph requests per month. It's a massive number. 18 trillion Microsoft Graph nodes. Those are those events and networks and machine learning connectivity behind the scenes are able to access the information which is relevant for the user. 90% of Fortune 500 companies are using Microsoft 365, and there's 200 million active users of Office 365 commercial sites. So it's not just EDU which is being used. 200 million, it's a massive opportunity for your extensibility applications. If you think about this from an architectural perspective, what the Microsoft 365 application is, it is a cross-platform application. So you build your experiences, and it will work across Windows, iOS, Android. That's really the direction where we're heading. No longer you need to choose the operating system where you want to expose your application. And then at the same time, under the hood, we have the Microsoft Graph giving you the access of different services, and then Microsoft Identity behind the scenes, making the whole access on the relevant data as easy as possible. But just to make sure that I actually get the marketing message properly, I want to first introduce my first friend here, Mike Camelan, to make sure that I'm telling the story in the right way. So Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Vesa. So I want to drill down a little bit on some of those points that Vesa was mentioning a little bit earlier about Microsoft 365 applications and how you can build better integrations and applications that connect to Microsoft 365, that work across platforms, and that integrate into your workflows. Now, first among these is this concept of cross-platform applications. Now, to do what Vesa did, to sort of talk a little bit about back in my day, when I was first on SharePoint as a program manager about 15 years ago, and you're looking to go build an application on the web that would connect back to Microsoft products, really there was only one answer for you. It was, well, you should probably build that with ASP.NET, because that was the main technology stack for building web applications that would use .NET that would connect back to other resources. But today, of course, we have a diversity of different types of devices and that people are using. So developing for Android is different from developing for iOS, which is different from developing for Windows. But in addition, the developer landscape is much more diverse and plural. So there's just a number of different approaches, architectures, technologies, stacks that developers are using to go build their applications. So all across Microsoft 365, what we're working to do is try to make sure that we've got the best, most accessible set of technologies so that no matter what your approach is, whether you prefer to build native applications across every device, or whether you prefer to build websites, or some sort of hybrid of the two, and whether you're using React or some other frameworks, or just coding raw JavaScript, that our set of technologies help you build those applications more quickly and more flexibly across all of those different platforms. So just as one example of this, Plex is a company that makes manufacturing software that actually works across a number of different devices, and that connects to back-end manufacturing supply chain type of applications. What we did was we actually took React Native, which is a flavor of React Native, React technologies that helps you build native experiences on devices, and made a really great implementation that runs on top of Windows. And what this empowers Plex to do is to build one experience that you can see here, it's side by side, the Android device and the Windows device, that helps them build a very consistent experience that leverages the native device capabilities. For example, on the Android device, you'll see them take a picture and use the local keyboards and those kinds of things. But it helps them get to market faster because we have a great story for how you can use React Native as one particular technology stack across different devices. But then the next major tenet of building Microsoft 365 applications is building this concept of connected experiences. So really, this is best manifested through Microsoft Graph technologies. Now, Microsoft Graph started off and continues to be a REST API that allows you to access key organizational information that's really vital to almost how any application would work. But we're also expanding Microsoft Graph so that you can actually do things like get the data at scale to build, and run AI models against it, to go, do, bigger and bolder things with the data. We're also doing different things with connections and making it easier to embed Graph user experiences inside of your own applications, very easily and very quickly. Now, the starting point for all of this is to build your applications with the Microsoft Identity Platform. Almost every application in existence is going to want to know who the user is. It's going to want to be able to authorize them and know what their permissions are. And there's really no better answer for that than the Microsoft Identity Platform because, as Vesa showed earlier, there's over 1 billion different accounts in Microsoft Identities, somewhere that you can access and work with. Of course, probably the people that you're working with in your companies all have a Microsoft identity in some form. So if you need to go use that in your application, it's always just a few lines of code away to have simple authorization and authentication that allows you to connect into all of the power of Microsoft Graph. So one quick example of this is Talentsoft. So they're from Paris, and they actually implement CRM software. And they actually worked with Dior as a customer. And what Dior wanted to do was use some of the information about their employees and their skills and their different talents and actually bring them together onto teams to create more effective, creative teams for the highly creative work that Dior does. So what they were able to do was take a technology called Graph Data Connect and actually run it against some AI models to actually improve the pairing of different skills for different employees into different teams. And because Graph Data Connect is built with management, security, and compliance in mind, they could make sure that just the right data was exposed and accessible to build this broader application. So Talentsoft is taking advantage of Microsoft Graph, taking advantage of their data, and taking advantage of AI technologies to build experiences that you really couldn't build before that would find the right people and automatically connect them together. Finally, there's this concept of integrated workflows. I think we're all here trying to rescue time from the employees that we work with. There's so much time is spent in collaboration, working together, meetings, focusing on work. And if you can actually save people time, even 1 or 2 minutes at a time, you can actually really change how people can be creative and how they can get their job done. And so we call this integrated workflow. This is the idea that by bringing your applications into Microsoft 365 to go build custom experiences, you can really start to win back time for your users, save them precious minutes in the day, and deliver a much better and more productive experience. So this is doing things like, for example, building add-ins that integrate with Office or with SharePoint or Microsoft Teams. So those are a little bit of the details of the 3 pillars. Let me show you just a couple of quick examples of how this all works and fits together. So let me go sign into my PC. Retake. OK. So the first thing I'm going to show you is an application that we have for our local healthcare clinics. And so this is actually a Windows application. Again, we want to support all kinds of different developer styles and techniques. In this case, you can imagine it's a healthcare application running natively on Windows because maybe they want to take advantage of some local Windows capabilities. They want to run on tablets. Maybe they want to take advantage of the ability to run AI locally. But one of the first things that you do when you boot this application is you want to sign the user in. And in this case, for Windows as a development platform, we've got some easy controls that make it possible for people to go sign into their applications, get started, and use the Microsoft identities that they already have installed to go ahead and get started. So let me go click that. So what this will do is it will actually take the Microsoft identity. I've already signed in before. It already knows my name and password. I've already approved this application. And it will go ahead and do the work to sign me in straight into my Microsoft identity account. Now, what they've done in this application is they've actually connected it to Microsoft Graph and services in Microsoft 365. So this application is built to sort of leverage the best of Microsoft 365. When I focus on my particular clinic, what you can see here is that there's a number of different views and pivots. It uses rich native controls, like, for example, this map control, which I also worked on. And that map control is really cool. It has lots of great capabilities inside of it. But it also leverages capabilities from Microsoft 365. So here, there is a control that is available for every developer that you can embed inside of your application that gives you access to tasks from Planner. So if your application has a need to track tasks information, you can do that very quickly inside of Windows. And so here I can say, investigate a leak or something like that. That sounds kind of bad. And this will go ahead and use Planner behind the scenes to go store that action.
And related on that one, it's actually pretty cool that when you open up then your mobile planner, it is the actual same tasks.
Right.
So it is not an application-specific task, it is tasks for you.
Yeah, and so if you want to work with your tasks on Planner on your Android device, you just open up Planner and you've got that experience for free.
Yep.
Similarly, you can see the conversations from Teams inside of this application. Now, this is something that we built that actually uses Graph APIs directly, but you can see that this is a Teams conversation that we're having, and you can see that actually inside of Teams, it's actually the same experience. So we have APIs for actually taking these conversations and being able to reuse them inside of the application.
Okay, and exposing the same data, same information, same events, based on a different software and applications.
Yeah, and the final example I'll just show you very quickly is, files are key to almost every application. I mean, this is the SharePoint conference. I think we're all believers in, the importance of content and files and those kinds of things. And through Microsoft Graph, what you can actually do is you can embed these file experiences directly inside of your application. So here I have a file picker. I can even do things like, view MRI images. And because OneDrive understands how to render MRI images, it can actually use that capability via Microsoft Graph directly inside of the application. So it'll show up here in just a second, a nice gruesome MRI image of somebody's knee, but that's kind of a preview that you can use directly inside of your application, and that will come down at some point. Now just let me show you the code behind the scenes that does this. Very quickly, that sign-in control, because we've built controls that work with your Windows applications, it's basically one line of XAML code to go embed a login control inside of your application. Similarly, that task list that I showed that connects to Planner, that's also just one line of XAML. You can incorporate it inside of your application, and voila, you've got an application that connects to tasks. And the final example I'll show is, through Microsoft Graph, I'm actually using a Graph API, which is a REST API, to go pull down the set of messages that were in that Teams conversation that I was showing you earlier to go embed chat inside of my application. So this API is still in beta. We're still working on it. But it just shows you how you can use a different mix of APIs and controls to build powerful experiences. Let's see, did my knee image come in? No, it did not. Try that again. OK. So that's just one example of the kinds of things that you can go build. In this case, it's a Windows application. I think Jeremy will show you a little bit of how you can do that on the web. But just one other quick demonstration experience I wanted to show you was switching gears. We work with a number of different organizations, and some of them are governmental organizations. And one of the very common tasks that they need to do is be prepared for emergencies. So we worked with a county in Florida where they have hurricanes. And what they want to be able to do is very quickly be able to provision a team that brings together all the people in their community to work in the event that a hurricane is about to strike. And as you can imagine, when a hurricane strikes, you don't have time to train people. You don't have time to go set up different teams and figure out the right layouts. And in fact, in the United States, when a disaster strikes, there's a whole bunch of federal forms that you need to be able to apply for to get the right aid at the right time for organizations. So one of the solutions that we created inside of SharePoint was an event management application that makes it very easy, for example, when events happen, to go provision exactly the right resources inside of Microsoft Teams. So in this case, maybe if there's heavy snow in Prague, December 5 snowstorm like this, I can just go click Create. This will use a flow behind the scenes to go create an approval workflow so that I can actually go, use the power of Power Automate to go customize, whether I want some sort of approvals for creating this new team. In this case, I should get the approval over here in just a second. But the nice thing about this is this application actually uses the power of SharePoint to go, actually determine the configuration of the team that's about to get provisioned. There's a number of different templates that are configured through SharePoint lists. Again, using SharePoint lists is a very powerful Lego block in this application. And once I approve this through my Microsoft Flow, like so, when I come back inside of Microsoft Teams, what you should see is that there will be a team that starts to get created that has all the right channels, all the right assets, all the right resources put into place so that we can bring together our emergency crew, we can use it inside of our emergency operations center, and we can get started very quickly. I've already got one that I've already created. You can see it's going to go create that team behind the scenes. And in this case, it's got all of the right channels that we need to deal with this emergency. But then in addition to that, if I go into, for example, the Files tab of this logistics channel, you can see here are, in this case, probably wouldn't work in Prague, but here's the United States Federal Emergency Management forms and paperwork that you need to have in place to make sure that you can apply for the right aid quickly. So, what you can see from this is, we're enabling the quick creation of artifacts inside of Teams, but as an application pattern, we're actually leveraging SharePoint as a fundamental building block. We're using lists, we're using documents inside of SharePoint, and the developer created this with SharePoint Framework to actually create the experience for actually provisioning these different things. Yeah. And so that's kind of a theme for the rest of this keynote, which is, Microsoft 365 has a lot of capabilities that we hope you explore, but SharePoint really lies at the core and provides a lot of those core building blocks for building great experiences all across Microsoft 365.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And really, thank you. Thanks, Mike. So it's really around the fact that we are using the different services and bits and pieces that we have in Microsoft 365 to build those experiences. And those are for you. They are the bits, they are the building blocks which you can take advantage. And like Mike showed, and we'll talk about that one widely on the conference as well, we provide you open source, typically open source, community controls or open source controls from Microsoft, which you can use to build your application. So you don't have to start by implementing the task list, which is connected to the graph, or you don't have to start by implementing the presentation controls. We give you all of that. You can concentrate on the business logic, and everything is typically open source. You can take advantage of all of those controls and capabilities, just building then your actual business application based on your customer requirements. Now, we talked about already that under the hood of the Microsoft 365, there we go, I'm saying that's still wrong. Microsoft 365 is the Microsoft identity. And then we have the Microsoft Graph, which is giving you access on all of this data and all of this information super easily. So you can get access on tasks, you can get access on SharePoint, you can create teams and all of that. And just to make sure that we get the message and get the story right and do some cool demos on this one, let me introduce Jeremy Flake, my good friend from CraftSite, to demonstrate these capabilities live.
Thanks, Vesa. I'm going to switch over to my machine to do these demos. Close off this warning. We're going to talk about the graph, and just one thing I want to make very, very clear for you guys is the first place that you should be going is graph.microsoft.com. This is where you can find out about everything that we're doing inside of Microsoft Graph across all of Microsoft 365. Now, how many people in the room here have already used Microsoft Graph Explorer to go look and discover what's available inside of the graph? This is where you have to participate. I know it was a big night last night, but I'm jet lagged, you partied, we should all be ready and focused here. So how many people have used Microsoft Graph Explorer here? Okay, thank you, that's good. Now, just to highlight, there is a new preview button here, which will jump you over to our new preview experience that adds a ton of new features inside of this experience. And what I just wanted to highlight here is that what you can achieve by discovering those Graph Explorer features. So the first thing I'm going to do here is click over and sign in as a demonstration account, which you can get through using the Office Developer Program. And what you'll see when I do this is that on the left-hand side, I'm now in as Megan, my demo account, and I can start running any of these samples like the My Mail here, which will show me that when I call graph.microsoft.com v1 me messages, I will see the responses on here of exactly what comes back, such as things like who were the to recipients in this email and who the from recipients were in this email. Now, we often get feedback that it's hard to understand what types of permissions that you require to make the different calls on the graph, because the graph surface layer now deals with about 50 different engineering teams within Microsoft. And so now we have this permissions tab, and we can even go as far as inside of Graph Explorer with one click of a button, going through the process of going and doing that consent to go grab the right permissions to be able to call that if you haven't already got the permission like I have here. So that's a pretty cool way of you getting to understand all the different permissions that are available inside of Graph Explorer and the underlying Microsoft Graph. Another really nice feature we had, and I've always struggled with this in the past, is we also give you the ability to see exactly what the code would be for .NET, for JavaScript, for Java, and even those poor Objective-C developers that have to write 1,000 lines of code rather than 3 lines of code in C#. I can take this code, grab that, put that into Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio 2019, and immediately start getting that information into my applications with all strongly typed data and compile time feedback inside of my applications, which is really good. So Graph Explorer is a great way to go and explore. We have a new search pane here to go through and see things like how I can go get teams and what information and what permissions I can get and start crawling. And we find a lot of developers start here and can even jump in directly into those docs that we run and ship as we release new services inside of the Microsoft Graph. So please go check that out and give us your feedback. Now, one thing we have also announced just recently at Ignite was a set of PowerShell commands that covers the entire, right now, the beta service, because we're in preview, of the Microsoft Graph. This allows you to connect both on behalf of a user or as an application ID. And so just to give you a bit of experience on how this works, I can go and go get the top 999 users within my demo tenant here. And so you can see here straight away, I can see the user IDs, the names, what room, location they're in, and what their phone numbers are. But I can also do things in the SharePoint sense, because we have SharePoint APIs in the Microsoft Graph. And so I can see here which 2 SharePoint sites are from marketing and display the display name, the description, the web URL of those SharePoint sites. But just to highlight something a little bit different, on Teams now, we announced in beta, actually on Monday, a new Presence API, which allows me to see the status of that user. Now, Megan has been sleeping, much like some of you have probably not been doing last night because you're out partying. And so I can go and change this to things like Do Not Disturb here, because Megan is obviously probably still in bed from the party. And you'll see immediately in real time that that availability status has changed against that Teams API. Now, there are lots of business scenarios where you could start to use this to make decisions on whether that person gets the task to go approve a particular business process that's really critical versus someone that might be available to be sent that task to go do that approval. And so this is something I feel that's going to be really, really powerful for you in your business solutions, and this is now available in preview as of this week. Now, Mike showed some demos of Teams. We internally use Teams a lot based on the different virtual teams that we use within our organization. I run and lead the Microsoft Graph PM Sync, which is about, as I say, 50 different engineering teams across Microsoft in various different countries. We share lots of conversations in Teams, and we run a weekly regular sync. Now, we have a new tab here that's hosted with an ASP.NET Core 3 application in the background that connects to the graph and takes the identity of the logged in user, in this case, I'm signed in at the top here as Katie Jordan, to then do things on Katie's behalf in this nice tabbed interface. So, if I'm in a board meeting type thing and I want to have a review meeting for 2020, we're actually doing things like, based on who Katie works with, we can go and make suggestions on who might be related to this meeting. Now, in this case, I'm also going to go and pick using the Microsoft Graph Toolkit People Picker, which you can use today, which is generally available as of Ignite, to go and add attendees. And you'll see immediately we're doing things like adding their profile photos from the Profile API inside Microsoft Graph. So you get the same feel of experience that you do with our own applications that you can build into these experiences for your own customers. Now, with meetings, often it's very hard to understand scheduling. The calendar APIs are available on the Microsoft Graph, and we have a Get Schedule feature, which allows me, based on having Katie and Elisa there, suggestions on when they're available. And so you can see here we have quite a few time slots on that day with 100% availability. And so now we can see it's picked that at 9 a.m. there for this. I'm going to just very quickly go through and say, well, we're going to review last year's quarter or last year's results. We're going to plan, and we're going to strategize. We're going to use all the big words here on stage. And because this is Teams and because this is a channel, we have the ability to leverage things like files and planner. And so you can see here, if I go pick a document from my document on my local store here, I can then go and save this meeting, and it'll go and create that meeting. It'll save that file into the files folder for that channel. It'll go and create the meeting invite and send that to those two different people with a joined Teams meeting to go get to. And then when the meeting is ready to run, I can just launch this meeting from that tab associated with this particular channel within this team and see that Katie accepted, Alyssa hadn't accepted the meeting. Here's that document that we go launch, which comes from that Files tab, and I can start making notes in this meeting. This is an awesome meeting, and I click Save down here. And then on the right-hand side, much like Mike showed, we, in our Microsoft Graph Toolkit for the web, allow you to very easily, with one line of code, go and integrate tasks directly into the plan that gets created with this channel to allow me to go do review FY 2020 and why we failed so badly. And I can go assign that to poor Elisa. And again, we're doing people picker stuff here. I can go and pick a due date for that task. And then essentially click Add here. And that will go and add that directly into the plan in the background. Now, when I'm done with this meeting and we've wrapped that meeting up, I can publish that meeting. And so you can see here I click the publish. What that will actually do is if I open up my Outlook, it'll send a wrap-up email to those users, and it'll include the attachments, it'll include the meeting notes that got created, it'll include those planner tasks, and it gives the ability for them to very easily jump back into context of this meeting and those teams. So if I go over here and have a look, you'll see that there were the attendees, here was the agendas, there's those notes, and we can actually go through and open up those OneNote notebooks to see those notes, as well as those tasks that got created. And so for instance here you can see, and it's a little bit small I know, so let me just zoom in, that we have all these meetings. You can see that new note was just created here for that meeting that I've just done. And so it allows people, if they're already using OneNote, to get at those notes that are accessible in that similar way. And likewise, I can see the files that came through that were created and attached to that channel. So the graph allows you to leverage all of those services and products that we have within Microsoft 365 and build those experiences in Teams in context of those conversations you're always having with your team. So this is going to be open sourced in the next week or so. We're just doing an internal code review to make sure what we're putting out there is approved by all the individual teams across the graph. So please check out our blog and we'll showcase that. Now the last thing I wanted to show was something we announced at Ignite a few weeks ago, which was our search connectors. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with Office 365 and our new search experience that we have inside of Office.com. And then if you look on the verticals on the right-hand side here, we have this new vertical called Catalog. This is actually surfacing data from a indexed service, where in this case we're using a user-defined type. And so you can see here I've got one item here, which is a Surface Pro 7, which is a great machine. You can also see on the right-hand side that it's still chasing me for my time zone. I am jet-lagged up the wazoo here. I'm sure you can excuse that. You don't have an excuse to be tired, even though you were at that party last night, so I'm going to go close that so we don't have to worry about this anymore. But what we can do inside of Postman, because the way that this works is as an application flow, is via the APIs, I can do things like go get me a token based on being a user within that tenant. And you can see here that I have this new permission scope for grabbing that information. And if I run against the beta/search API and post it with a query string of searching for Surface, you'll see if I scroll down here into my results that I'm getting exactly the same results back in an API way for you to go use inside of your environment. And so this allows you to leverage the power of Microsoft 365 Search in your own business applications, and you can go index your own content just using simple API calls. So to index content, I'm going to go and get an app token, not on behalf of Flow with a user token. And in this sense, what I can do very easily is go post using a connection to this product catalog, some item information. So you can see here, I'm going to go post the image of the product, the company name, the category, the description. And Postman has a really nice feature called the runner, which allows me to essentially go get a file here with a bunch of products. And I'm just going to pick my environment, which has all my configuration in there. And on the left-hand side, I'm going to pick this one feature that allows me to go and index that product, all those products in Flow. And when I click Run here, what that will do is it'll iterate through my CSV, which has about 13 products in it, and call the Microsoft Search Index to actually go and add those products in there. Now, once that's done, when I refresh my search over here, you'll see instantly that all those products are appearing in real time inside of that search index, which is pretty incredible. So you can go integrate with other systems, like this product catalog might be coming from a third-party CRM system, but it doesn't have to stop there. It can be files that come from an on-premises file system, or maybe from another cloud service provider. This allows you, as an organization, to have all of your search experiences work across all of the systems in your organization. Now, this is available in public preview today. You can go to our site to go sign up for this search index and get going today. So thank you, Vesa. I'm hoping that was just a good way of seeing what's available on the Microsoft Graph. And please go check out graph.microsoft.com to see more.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. So what's really cool about what Jeremy showed also, if you think about the classic SharePoint on-premises deployments, one of the key challenges what we were having was also estimating the storage, estimating the corpus size and search and everything else. All of that can be placed in the cloud. So you don't have to worry about the storage. One of the key advantages of the cloud, no doubt, is OneDrive, which is basically an unlimited storage for anybody in the corporate company. And then you can also, the search corpus can be in the cloud as well. So thank you, Jeremy, for that one. Now, this is a European SharePoint conference and Office 365 and Azure, so we obviously want to talk about also the SharePoint side of the house. And one of the really, let's say, important pieces of SharePoint is absolutely the portals and communication side of the house. So now that the collaboration goes more and more to the team side, the role of SharePoint is more and more heading to the communication side of the house and building portals and maybe then exposing those portals through the teams as well, if you prefer accessing the portal information and news and communication data using that kind of a way. So one of the really cool capabilities which we announced in Ignite, we've been building this for quite a few months with multiple vendors, was the lookbook.microsoft.com. We used to have a lookbook already in the past, but now we're kind of making this more polished and more experienced and more integrated actually to potentially to your tenant as well. And just to demonstrate the flow of the lookbook.microsoft.com, let me invite here one of the key developers behind the scenes, Paolo Pialorsi. Good morning, Paolo.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Vesa. Thank you. So let's talk about the SharePoint Lookbook site. And yes, the Lookbook site, under the cover of the idea of having the Lookbook site, there's the idea to make it possible for everybody to reuse the well-designed Lookbook site in their own environment, in their own tenant. And that's why, using the PMP provisioning engine, we decided to extract from the Lookbook site that we defined using the modern UI of SharePoint Online, a bunch of PMP provisioning templates that you can reuse. But we wanted to do even more, and to make it possible for you to use those provisioning templates easily, or at least as easier as we can for you. So we made it possible for you to use a site where you can browse through the catalog of available templates. As you can see here, we have categories, and you can browse through all of the site designs that we provide, and site templates, better. And what you can do, for example, you can select a lookbook site that you like. You can see what is the preview of that site, and you can easily deploy or create an instance of that site in your target tenant to play with it, to take inspiration from it, or to learn how to make it possible to have the same design in your own solutions. The service will create for you a site collection or multiple site collections and will provision the content on your target environment. It takes a while, so first of all, let me start provisioning this design, for example, the landing lookbook site, and then I will explain you what is happening and how you can leverage this functionality. First of all, when you want to provision a site using the lookbook service, you have to authenticate targeting a specific Office 365 tenant. And the very first time you will do that, you will also have to consent to an Office 365 application that we created, the permissions to create the content on your target environment. And that's why the very first time you will have to consent, and you will have to be a tenant admin to do that, right now at least.
For now, yeah. We're looking into reducing that requirement in the future.
We are working hardly on that, and hopefully we will make it possible. So now I'm in a form where I can simply configure what I want to provision. So for example, I can say that I want to provision the landing site on a specific URL, let's say ESPC19, for example. We will check for you if the URL is available or not, and if not, we will let you know that. This one is available, and when you click on the provision button, there will be a validation of some prerequisites in order to see if your tenant is ready to host the new site template. And if that is the case, you can simply confirm, and the background process will start provisioning a new set collection or a hierarchy of set collection in a hub site, depending on the template that you choose. And we will do the actual provisioning of the content. And this will be the final URL of the site that you will have at the end of the provisioning process. Of course, you can close the browser and go away, and you will get an email message which will notify you that the content is now available and the site has been deployed. Just to give you an idea, let me go back to the lookbook site, and let's see what we have while the provisioning is going, what we have for every single template that we can provision. We have the list of features that we use in that specific template. For example, in this one, we use the vertical section. And if you click on it, you can easily see what the vertical section is and how you can use it in your own environment. So there are instructions to use it in your own environment. Likewise, we do that for the web part. So you can see what is the list of web parts that we are using in that template. And let's say, for example, that you want to use the weather web part. Click on it, and again, you will see instruction about how it works and how you can use it in your own environment.
Because obviously, as a developer, you don't want to implement the same thing which is there out of the box. So it's important that you know which of those are out of the box and what's possible, and then extend and develop those things which are not available by default.
And just to give you an idea, this is an example of some of the site templates that you can provision using the lookbook site. This is the FlySafe Conference one, this is the perspective, and they're all nice looking with a bunch of out-of-the-box functionalities, and you can take inspiration from them. For example, here you can see the new list view templates and stuff like that. So, and this is
Paolo, just an example. So I'm a recovering consultant, which means that I used to be a consultant. But when we did a consulting engagement, it was all about pre-sales and demonstrating the power of the modern portals as an example. So I could actually use this against any tenant or my demo tenant then to demonstrate what's possible.
Precisely. And I would suggest you to go to the Office Developer Portal and from there create a new subscription and play with that one, provisioning as many sites as you like, because this is the right way to do experimental things with the lookbook site and with the provisioning engine in the back end.
We'll come back on that one in a second. Just to recap on that one, using the Office 365 developer program, you will get a free E5 tenant. So you can actually use that to do development for free. And it will automatically renew in 90 days as long as you use it for developer purposes. So using writing custom web parts and doing customization and extensibility on that tenant. So really, really cool. We are giving that for you for free.
As long as you will use it, it will stay alive. So really, really useful. So this is, for example, the landing site. I already provisioned one because it takes a while to do the actual provisioning. But let me see if the other one is already working or not. Let me double check. Still working on it. So we already have the site. We still don't have the actual provisioning because it will take a few minutes to do the complete provisioning of the resources. But in the meantime, I can show you the result for a site that I already pre-created for the sake of saving some time in this keynote. Now, what if you simply want to use those templates because you like them, but for example, you don't want to use the lookbook service, or maybe you can't use the lookbook service because you are not a tenant admin? Of course, as we said, you can always switch to a developer tenant, and there you will be a tenant admin. But let's say that you want to do the provisioning of the landing in another context, or of any other template that we have. Well, you can easily go to a GitHub repository, which is under SharePoint organization/sp dev provisioning templates. And there you will find all of the provisioning templates, the PMP provisioning template that we provide through the lookbook site. actually you will find more than the templates that you can see in the lookbook site. All of those with the lowercase name, let me get the landing if I'm lucky enough. Yeah, here it is. Here you will find a .pmp provisioning template that you can simply download and use, for example, in PowerShell or in any other context of your choice in order to simply enjoy those templates without the need to go to the lookbook site. Of course, we do suggest you to go through the experience of the lookbook site because you will find much more information, the categories and everything else. But feel free to just grab the templates from the repository and enjoy them.
So that's actually kind of cool when I think of it. So Jeff Deeper showed a lot of cool demos on Tuesday morning in here, and those demos were actually demonstrated on these kind of looking sites. So all of the designs which were created for Keynote in Ignite or in ESPC are available for you. It's not no longer just a picture in a video or a picture within a writing or in a screen. It is actual site which you can configure and start using within your tenant as well.
And the site is coming. So there is no time to wait, but later on you will see the whole site available. It is coming step by step because the provisioning is running.
Yep.
I think that's it for me. Thank you. Enjoy the lookbook site and see you.
Thank you, Paolo. Good. We'll come back on the slide. So that is correct. Cool. So we'll come back on the site. We'll double check that it's actually working and provisioning was successful. It always depends on a template how long it actually takes. And what's cool about those templates, the engine behind of the scenes actually supports also Microsoft Teams. So we're able to integrate Microsoft Teams templates and structures to be provisioned together with site collections and hub sites and all of that stuff with the one PowerShell command or using a button clicks with an API what we have available. Now, which kind of relates back on the fact that, okay, that's really cool. Cool templates. We're able to create cool templates in SharePoint, and you provided an extra site where you can go and provision templates if you're a tenant administrator. But what if you would like to do and create those templates as an end user? And you would like to integrate that experience with out-of-the-box capabilities within a SharePoint. What would be the right ways of doing that? So obviously, as part of this, let's say, joint work, what we do, I'm a good example. I work mainly on the open source side of the house, but actually I also own features in SharePoint Online. We work together on making sure that there's a seamless connectivity and connection and a way to integrate the open source and community side of the house and extensibility with modern SharePoint to out-of-the-box capabilities. And for this one, let me introduce here Laura Kokkarinen from Sulava to demonstrate the capability in practice. So how can we take those templates and integrate them to out-of-the-box experiences? Welcome, Laura.
Hello, good morning. How are you guys doing? A lot of you were probably all as well. Are we too close to each other?
No, all good, all good, all good. It's fine. Fine. I'll go hiding behind this, so that's good.
A lot of you were probably already in my session on Tuesday about SharePoint site designs, but if you weren't, SharePoint site designs are a way for you to automate site configurations for modern SharePoint Online sites. The things you can do with them are, for example, creating site columns, creating content types that consist of those site columns, creating lists for the site that use those content types, and also do a lot of other cool things. You can install SPFX solutions to the sites, apply company branding in the form of a color theme, a logo, header layout, and color, footer, navigation layout, and so forth. And site designs always consist of one or more site scripts, which are basically JSON files where you describe the actions that you want to execute when you apply that site design to a site. And let me show you an example of one such. I should move this thingy because I'm too short. There. Here we have an example of one such site script. So what I want to do here is that I want to apply a company color theme to the site, and then I want to set other branding settings to that site as well. So I want to use the compact header layout on the team site. I want it to have the background color of the primary color of the theme, and then I also want to show the footer. And because I want to create an internal project site, I want to disable external sharing capability on that site, and I want to create one list that is common across all projects in the tenant. And in that, list, we also have list view formatting coming in. And finally, we add that list to the site navigation. You can create this kind of site scripts either by hand, by following the JSON schema on Microsoft site, or you can use third-party tools where you can select the things that you want to do, and the tool generates JSON for you. Or then you have two PowerShell commandlets that allow you to export this kind of a site script based on an existing list or an existing site in your tenant. So you don't need to do this kind of stuff manually. You can just run that command and you get the same configurations, and then you can use the site script to provision other sites just like that. And when you're done with your site script, then you deploy it to your tenant, and after that you can use that through a site design that you sort of add as a wrapper for this site script to trigger the execution of this either through the out-of-the-box UI or programmatically through PowerShell, REST, or CSAM. And let me show you a demo of how that works through the user interface. So this is the self-service site creation view in SharePoint. And if you go to create a site and then click on Team Site, you can see that I have a drop-down here showing my custom site designs, and this internal project site contains the script that I just showed you. We select that, and here I've added a comment of what that does, so the user knows that as well when they're using it. Otherwise, the process is the same as usual. So let's call this ESPC Keynote demo, and let's hope that there's no another site with the same URL now. And then we just click Next. And now it is creating the site in the background, and it always does it so that it creates the site first, and after that it applies the custom site design to do those configurations. And then we can click on Finish to get redirected on the site. And what it should do now is to pop up the kind of yellow banner at the top of the home page, which has a link view progress, but sometimes it doesn't do that. This time it did, so great. We can open this panel and see as our site script is getting executed in the background. And when it's done, we can refresh the page and see that our color theme gets turned to purple, and also the header background is changed to reflect that primary color. Afterwards, you can also check what was done through the site design panel. So in case that yellow banner doesn't show up, you can check the site design panel for what actions were executed. And also, through this link, you have an ability to apply additional site designs after the site creation. What we also did, in addition to adjusting the branding settings, we created this kind of an issues list on the site, because all my projects tend to have some kind of issues. And let me demonstrate how the list view formatting works. So let's create a new issue, for example, too little coffee, because I've just had 1 cup this morning and it's an issue, and I don't know how to use this US keyboard. And this is a big problem for me. No, I don't know how to write a question mark or an exclamation mark here, so like this. Then I need to, of course, assign someone to take care of this issue, so let's hope Erwin is awake by now. Maybe not, because he was at the party last night. And then we save that. Oh, but this isn't a normal issue. I don't want that to be yellow. I want this to be a critical issue, so we do it like that, and the list view formatting makes it red. This is a very simple example of list view formatting. You can do a lot cooler stuff as well, and you can include all of that in your site script to be deployed automatically. Then there's another really cool thing that you can do with site designs, and that is to trigger a flow or a logic app. And if you've ever used either one of those services, you probably realize that, whoa, that just offers you so much more capabilities than what site designs can offer you out of the box. And one thing you can do with them is, for example, call an Azure function. And in an Azure function, you can even run your own code. So by following this kind of a process, the options are pretty much limitless what you can do for sites through site designs. And one example of what people tend to do through this kind of a process is to apply a PMP provisioning template. And let me show you what that looks like. So if we go back to the site creation screen, I have another site design for communication sites called this. Sometimes this does that as well, so it doesn't show the custom site designs. Let's refresh the page. That usually fixes the issue. Come on. There we go. So here I have another custom site design called ESPC custom template. And what this does, it just triggers a logic app that I have here. And basically in the site script you have the trigger flow action, and to that you give this URL from this when a HTTP request is received trigger. All these flows and logic apps need to start with this trigger if you want to use them from your site script. And what we get here as a parameter is the URL of the site where we applied the site design. And what we can then do is we pass that URL on to the Azure function so that our Azure function knows which site it should apply the template to. And the Azure function is here, is created using PowerShell. So what happens first is we get the site URL from the request body. Then we connect to the tenant using PMP PowerShell and application permissions. So as you can see, we are getting authenticated with a certificate that is stored in the files of this Azure function. And then we are using this apply PMP provisioning commandlet, which is available in PMP PowerShell, and we apply a PMP provisioning template from this Azure function files to the site which URL we got as a parameter. Now, I don't know how you guys tend to spend your free time, but I figured, yeah, I could run this demo in this session, and we could go to this site and look at the site content view and check how the site assets library file count gets increased by 1 and be like, whoa, this is the best demo ever. Or then I can run this yesterday and just show you what it looks like. So let's go back here. And here I have the site. Now, this should look familiar to you if you followed Paulo's demo just now. So the template I used in the Azure function is one of the templates that you can download from GitHub, and they are the same templates that are used by the lookbook site. So yeah, this is an example of how you can use these beautiful site templates all from within your own tenant and allow all other users in your tenant as well to provision these than just the global administrators that can use the lookbook site. Then a couple of other things that I wanted to mention to you. So at Ignite, it was announced that there will be some new capabilities coming for site designs, such as the ability to add files and folders and also provision teams. Those will be coming at some point. I have no idea about the schedule. But yeah, definitely take advantage of site designs. They are a really, really powerful feature, and they are expanding. So yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Laura. Thank you. But that's really a great example on the fact that even though we're using the out-of-the-box capabilities in Microsoft 365, we're able to absolutely get to the Azure side of the house and then use the advantages of Azure. We can use the cognitive services, the machine learning, artificial intelligence, which is a lot of the stuff which we're integrating more and more across the Microsoft 365 services. And this was European SharePoint, Office 365, and Azure conference, so it all ties in together as a Microsoft platform across the different services. Now, we do have a few minutes, so I wanted to quickly pinpoint the SharePoint framework still, and what are we going to do with that one with a quick few seconds video, so you'll know what's happening there. But overall, the SharePoint framework is something which we released 2.5 years ago. It's been insanely successful. It is by far the #1 extensibility model in the Office 365, and it's still growing at the rate of 236% third-party extensibility usage year by year after 2.5 years. So it's quite a lot. We've done 11 major SPFX releases since GA, which was 2.5 years ago on February 2017. 23rd of February 2017, unless I'm completely mistaken. But it's been highly successful, and it's being adapted by customers and partners when they extend the modern capabilities, but it actually also works in the classic capabilities if you haven't yet moved over on the SharePoint side. And you can build also different other extensibility with it. So SharePoint Framework, which is still for now called SharePoint Framework, you can actually build Microsoft Teams tabs. And we'll host the extensibility for you automatically with CDN, operations, all of that. You don't need to worry about the Azure side of the house. We'll take care of all of that for you. Pretty soon, starting from SharePoint Framework 1.10, it's going to be actually available, or you can build extensibility to Outlook and Outlook Web Access using the SharePoint Framework. And then right after that, quite soon, you can build Office add-ins in Word, Excel, and PowerPoint using the same model. So the only logical conclusion is, why do we call it SharePoint Framework then? And we're going to actually work through to rename the SharePoint Framework to something else. And in the Ignite, we call it Yo Microsoft 365. We'll see what's the end result. That's Mike's responsibility, not my responsibility to come up with a marketing names on these things. But before we close up for today, I wanted to quickly show a quick video which shows where we're heading with this one. So Fluid Framework is something which we announced or previewed in Build, and this is a video just to save some time because we had a limited amount of time for the keynote as well, to show you what's possible with Fluid Framework and Microsoft 365 components. The future of SharePoint Framework, which is going to be renamed probably as Microsoft 365 components. We'll see, again, marketing decision. But here's a really nice example. It's moving in loops now, where we're using the same extensibility, the same panel or same component across multiple different applications. You as a developer, you can decide where you want to expose that, how you want to expose the extensibility, and what does it actually do. In this case, we also take advantage of the Fluid Framework, which is a real-time communication protocol or a framework, enables you to channel and send messages across the different instances and different people using the same component. So you can think about the fact that you sent a request of additional data from somebody in email with a fragment of a component. He fills that fragment, and the data is getting copied and updated on the original documents, as an example. So it's a really cool feature on these things. And a really important thing to understand is that this is the same technology based on SharePoint Framework, and it's going to be renamed to something else. So if you learn one way of doing extensibility, like SharePoint Framework, you can actually then extend across the whole Microsoft 365 platform, which is pretty cool for the future. Now, a few more slides, and Tracy is going to drop by in a second as well, before we go to the break and move to the actual breakouts. We do have a really active community. I have a session starting 15 past, so I'll be running directly to the room after this keynote around the latest on our open source community side of the house, so which is called SharePoint Patterns and Practices for now, which demonstrates actually a lot of the capabilities which we showed today. For example, graph usage, we have more than 500 samples. There's more than 1,000 contributors here. We were awarded as the reference sample community model pretty recently in the Microsoft. We have more than 60,000 visitors in GitHub and more than 31,000 tenants using these open source tools and components and controls. So please take advantage of them, because they will increase your productivity as a developer, because you can concentrate on the business logic rather than how do you implement something. It is all there. And we also have more than 2.5 million watch time minutes in our YouTube channel. I'm still kind of debating if I'm going to enable ads. That would be so cool, but probably I shouldn't. But it's heading, there's a lot of additional assets which you can take advantage, so please take advantage of those within your work. How to get started? Go dev.microsoft.com/Microsoft365. That's the unified landing portal, and from there you can find information about Graph and all of the other capabilities. So familiarize with the platform capabilities. Try the Microsoft Graph and get know what's in the Graph API. If that's not good enough for you, you can always fall back on the native APIs. But we are working on the Graph side of the house all the time. And please explore the Patterns and Practices assets. They are there to help you to be successful. And if something is missing, let us know. Trust me, we are here to help you. We are not here to make your life difficult. Tell us what do you need, so we're able to actually make your life more easy. Also, sign up for the Office 365 dev program. You will get a free tenant, E5 tenant, with 25 accounts for that one. And it automatically renews in 90 days for as long as you use it for developer usage. Super valuable thing for free. And that's a really cool thing. And then you can use those templates and, for example, the lookbook.microsoft.com in that tenant, so you'll be isolated world to test out things for your development. But that's it for us for now. So let me invite Tracy to do a few words related on what's happening today. Tracy? But thank you for our side. Thank you.